Both Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff are named executive directors of creative of Raw and Smackdown, and I have my co-host Ashley to discuss all of this. But first, a word from the sponsor. Alright guys, so as we get older, hair loss is just part of what we have to deal with, right? And I'm 34 years old and I can already see it taking place. And you all know about the foam you can put on your head and the invasive surgeries you can have and hair transplants, all of that. Well, what if there was an easier way to do it, and a safer way, and that is through scalp micropigmentation. So Star Micropigmentation, they're the leaders in the scalp micropigmentation. It's the newest non-invasive solution to thinning hair and balding, and at Star Micropigmentation they use the most sophisticated device and needles specifically engineered for the scalp, so they ensure that it's the most natural looking results. You can go to their website if you want to check it out at scalptattoostore.com, or you can call them at 844-TAT-HAIR. That's 844-TAT-HAIR, or the scalptattoostore.com. And at Star Micropigmentation, they also offer a certification, so you can join them in this booming industry. And I checked out the website, guys, and I'm really impressed. You should see some of the results that they have posted up there. You can also get trained, as I said, in being able to provide this to other people. So check out the scalptattoostore.com today.
Welcome to the WWE Podcast, your place for the most passionate wrestling analysis on the web.
Just turn Roman heel. What is WWE waiting for?
When other wrestling podcasts put you to sleep, you can count on the WWE Podcast to keep you engaged and asking for more.
I've been watching wrestling for over 20 years, and that was one of the best matches I've ever seen.
This is unlike any other wrestling analysis. So without any further delay, let's get the show started right now.
Welcome to the WWE Podcast. It is Friday, June 28th, 2019. Thank you for joining me, and I've got a really good show for you today. I'm excited for you guys to listen to this because anytime you get that fire in your conversation with your co-host and you get the passion and you just talk wrestling, it's always a good listen. And I'm not just talking about us. I'm talking about anytime you hear anybody talking about wrestling, you can tell they're genuinely passionate about it very quickly. And I think my co-host and I are genuine about our passion for wrestling and wanting to see it improve. And we touch on so many different things this week, obviously leading with Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff being named as the executive directors of creative for both Raw and Smackdown. And so I won't spoil my opinions nor hers on that, but we get into that. We get into Undertaker's return. We get into Ricochet winning the United States Championship, Kofi and Samoa Joe, Finn Balor and Shinsuke Nakamura, so many different things. Aleister Black we even touch on, obviously Bray Wyatt, Seth and Becky, just really everything that you could think of as far as the current product we touch on the best that we could. So I will stop talking, and other than to tell you, check out the website at wwepodcast.com for your latest shows, latest columns, which will be going up shortly in the next couple of days. So, guys, thank you for listening and enjoy the show. Alrighty, guys, welcome back. And, of course, it is time for everybody's favorite show of the week, and that is when I bring a co-host onto the show. And, Ashley, welcome back to the show. We definitely have some news coming through the wire that we're going to get to, but I want to welcome you back to the show. Week number 2 as the official co-host of the WWE Podcast.
Yes. Hey, Matt, it's so great to be back. I can't wait to go over everything with you. I think we have one or two things maybe to talk about.
Yeah, it's good. It's we'll probably have to make some stuff up or
some filler.
Yeah, it'll be this is gonna be a lot of a fluff show, so not a lot of content. Just we're gonna talk about everything and nothing. Don't worry, it's just
Right.
So with that everything and nothing, this big ticket news item that I don't think anybody saw coming. I didn't. I'm excited for it. And before I dive into what I think and my thoughts about it, and that, of course, is Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff both being named separately as executive directors of Raw and SmackDown, Paul Heyman, Executive Director of Raw, and Eric Bischoff, the Executive Director of SmackDown, in the creative end. It doesn't seem like an on-air role, but on the creative end. So what are your thoughts on all this?
Whew, man, where to even begin with this one? I think it's very smart of WWE. I think it is a great move both offensively and defensively, especially with the Eric Bischoff coup. I think obviously Eric Bischoff went head to head with him. Everyone knows that. So who better to have on your team than the person who was trying to do everything they could to put you out of business or to be the number one company, however you want to look at it. And I think too, if they didn't snag Eric Bischoff right off the bat, maybe AEW could have down the road. So I think in AEW side, who else out there who is available right now currently could you get that would be better than Eric Bischoff to kind of not even do necessarily anything creative, but to help navigate the show, help with the timing, the production, and everything like that, because that's what Eric Bischoff thrived on. And I think someone like that could have been crucial to AEW because I think him and JR would have maybe meshed well over time, and those are two of the best minds in the business. So I think it was a very good move by WWE, snagging Eric before anyone else could.
Yeah, again, there's so many levels and layers to this because it came out of nowhere, and I think Eric Bischoff more of the surprise than Paul Heyman, who we all kind of assumed was helping with the writing backstage, but not to this level. Mm-hmm. Obviously, Eric Bischoff is a big grab for WWE, not just because to make sure AEW doesn't get them, but also because of the mind that Eric Bischoff has for the business. And obviously the contributions he's had throughout the years, not just in WCW, but even in WWE. I loved him as the general manager of Raw. I thought he was a perfect fit. And then when Stone Cold came along as a co-GM, their on-air chemistry was just rock solid. And I think that right now we need to just, while this is exciting and this is definitely making news and creating a splash and it's got people talking, I don't mean to pour cold water on this at all because I am in the camp of excited, but I'm also a bit hesitantly, I guess I'm maybe hesitantly excited is the phrase. I'm sure there's something better, but it is because of the fact that guess who gets the final say in everything? Vince
right.
McMahon. And I tweeted that out too, but that's what makes me a little bit cautious of how excited I could be for this because yes, they are the executive directors of their respective brands, and they are the top dog writers, if you will, or creative of their brands. But at the same time, Vince McMahon has the final say, which scares the hell out of me because that is exactly, and what John Moxley pointed to is exactly the problem is Vince McMahon. So when the game begins and ends with Vince, no matter how many middlemen you have in between, it's not going to matter when Vince ultimately makes the call.
Yeah, you're definitely right there, and that is something that I am rather, I guess, kind of scared of because you can bring in anyone in the world into the company, but if Vince McMahon still has the final say, then it doesn't really matter who else is there. But I think it's a good sign because why would Vince bring these two guys in these positions? Because he created these positions. They didn't exist prior to this, I don't believe. So, and to give them a specific brand and have them focus on each show individually. And I think it may lead to other things too, depending on how quickly all of this goes into effect. Because did they say when are they actively going to be in that position, or is it an immediate thing?
My assumption was it was effective immediately, but without going back and looking at the press release, which I'll be doing as we're talking here, I don't know. I would assume that it would be effective immediately.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. So, but I don't expect any immediate changes. Like within this week coming up. I think we may start to see even more smaller things tweaked, which I'm sure we'll get into later on. But I think probably one of the first things to leave would be like the wild card, because I think depending on, especially too, if Eric and Paul are going to have an on-screen character with these roles, I think we may see WWE create their own competition. Kind of what they wanted to do originally with the draft was to have each show kind of competing against each other in a sense. So yeah, but again, I think the whole point with Vince even bringing them into that capacity is a good sign, because obviously he's acknowledging that something needs to change, and I think he's doing what he feels is best to do that without completely removing himself.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, good point. I just, while this is for sure a good move from a visual standpoint, the optics look good, as they say. I mean, from an outside perspective, you may say, oh, well, WWE is clearly listening to us. Look at who they're bringing in. Two of the greatest minds in the history of the wrestling industry from a creative standpoint, of Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff. And I would like to believe that their idea is not just to get the fans excited and make it more of a more than it really is, but to actually implement what we hope is going to happen, and that is Eric and Paul taking full control over their brand's creative, and having Vince McMahon, while yes he is the final say, our fears of him still controlling behind the scenes, even though he, quote, put other people in charge, he could take a step back and say, okay, well, I'm the final say, but you know what? Like, I'm gonna be a little more lenient. I'm gonna be a little more open-minded, and what you guys say, I'll go with. I will trust both of your instincts, both of your recommendations, and just see how that goes. Instead of Vince putting his typical, Vince McMahon spin on things, which over the last 5 years has clearly not been the flavor of fans. And that's my hope, is while Vince has ultimate control, that he's really allowing Eric and Paul to both really run the show, even though Vince is the final say. And I, as you said too, it's not going to be, oh my God, Monday and Tuesday night are going to look and feel so much different. That's not going to be the case. Just like when the McMahons came out last fall and said, oh, we hear you, we're going to let you guys take control. Well, shouldn't that have been what's been going on all along? I mean, we're the paying customer. Shouldn't you give us what we want? So the fact that you acknowledge that you haven't, and now you're suddenly going to, it didn't really feel authentic. It didn't feel genuine, because nothing really changed. And they said, the McMahons and Triple H came out that night and they said, we're going to give you guys control, new matchups. Well, new matchups aren't the problem. The problem is how WWE presents professional wrestling in sometimes an eye-rolling, very illogical way of storytelling, and that's the problem. There's no true character development. There's no long-term planning. These are the problems, not we need new matchups. New matchups are nice. They're a nice Band-Aid, but they don't give us and they don't address what the problem is. And hopefully Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman can both see that. I believe they do. And they can start to change it step by step. But, as you said, this has to be baby steps. There has to be a vision. There has to be a plan. And it has to be executed accordingly. And we have to have patience. And I think that's the key.
For sure, yeah. I think one of the things I'm very curious about as well is with how public they made it today, how they capitalized with it on TV, and more so with Paul than Eric, just because Paul is obviously aligned with Brock Lesnar. So is Paul, since he's already going to kind of be on TV anyway, does that kind of give them even more of a reason to just have him as, like, not necessarily called a general manager, but like another authority figure? So I'm just kind of curious to see how that's addressed, or if they do address it on air right now, or if they just say, yeah, Paul is the new executive director, and just kind of not brush it off, but just address it and then move on, and then we really don't see him on TV anymore. But I'm just kind of curious to see how they handle Paul going forward, and Brock for that matter.
I think they'll just go with as business as usual. Brock Lesnar cannot survive without Paul Heyman, because Brock Lesnar is let's be honest, an awful promo. He'll have his good sound bites. He's authentic when he speaks, but it's just not a good promo guy, a wrestling promo guy. So he needs Paul Heyman out there. I think that they will continue to use Paul Heyman in his current role, and then also he'll be dueling as a executive director of creative. I mean, look what they're doing with Triple H. Triple H wears about 87 hats. And we just take him at whatever he is at the current moment. He's, sometimes he's the D-Generation X guy, he's the NXT guy, he's just Paul Levesque, he's Triple H's wife, Triple H's husband. He plays so many different roles that we just were like, okay, well, which one are you today? So I think we can handle two roles of Paul Heyman, and I think that one role of executive director of creative will not be spoken about, because I think you'd be undermining your product. I mean, immediately if you acknowledged it on air that, oh yeah, Paul Heyman is now the executive director of creative. I mean, that's one of those things that, as much as the curtain's been pulled back over the years and decades, you still don't really talk about. So I think it'll just continue with business as usual. I don't believe that either will be an on-air authority figure based on the fact that of the titles they're given, and it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense to acknowledge that in a product that you're watching, that they're writing the story you're watching. It just would mess up so many different levels, the fourth wall, all that stuff. So, I'm excited to see what Eric Bischoff does with SmackDown Live. I'm really, really more curious with that than Paul Heyman, because Eric Bischoff has been removed from WWE since, 2000s, mid-2000s? 7, 8, something like that. I think he left the organization, maybe even sooner than that. And so it's been, a good 10 to 15 years since we've seen Eric Bischoff in an official capacity, in a management role. So that is, to me, the more interesting side of this, is Eric Bischoff.
Yeah, and I think because I do listen to his podcast, and they don't obviously talk about current day product that frequently, but I think the few times it's been brought up, he had mentioned, he follows, the majority of them on Twitter, and, he mentions, how much he loves Becky and, little things like that, but he had even admitted to not really fully watching the product and keeping up to date with it, so I think that's going to be interesting, too, and I think more so with him, he'll probably take, a step back and just, observe everything when he first goes in, and then maybe, a month or two, we'll start to, actually see changes. So, but it's perfect because he was obviously working very close with Turner since their show's on TNT. And with SmackDown going to Fox in the fall, I believe it's October, that it's kind of the perfect person to just help make that transition as smooth as possible. So I think maybe they were looking long term in that aspect with him as well.
Yeah, I mean, that is something I didn't think about as well. I mean, when you have Fox deal coming up and the ratings are just plummeting, Fox could easily say, yep, guess what? No, we're not going to put you on the Fox broadcast network. You guys are going to FS1, FS2. I mean, and that would really damage the exposure of the brand that WWE is trying to promote, SmackDown Live. And so I think this move is as much as a visual optic move to settle the nerves of Fox executives, as well as satisfy fans' fears as well, because these are two extremely trusted, respected minds in the business. I mean, just think about what they accomplished. It's insane. You mentioned it, 86 weeks, beating Vince McMahon, ECW, and the revolution that was. And I'm not talking about WWE's version of ECW, which was a complete disaster. I'm talking about the original ECW. It was, just that influenced so many different storylines. It influenced so many different stars. It created so many stars. Stone Cold came out of that. I mean, the biggest star in the history of professional wrestling came out of it. So there is a lot of this. A lot of this is, look at their resume. It's extremely impressive. Settle the nerves of fans. Settle the nerves of Fox executives who are looking at the ratings going, oh my God, look at this. And also, hopefully, as equally important is actually going, okay, you've seen what we've done, now look what we're going to do. And if what you're saying is true, and I actually don't listen to Eric's podcast, although I probably should, is that if he is not current with the product, he probably won't come in and lay the hammer down right away of, we're making this change, that change, this change. It's a smart business decision to just kind of ease his way into and familiarizing himself with the lay of the land. Okay, Becky Lynch is this and this. Learn about the characters. Learn about where they want to go. Where do you want to go? What do the fans want to see? What do the fans not even know they want to see yet? there's just so many things that if he's not really intricately incorporated in watching the product every single week, he needs and has a lot of catch up to do. And I'm totally fine with seeing the same product the next week, couple of months. But I think, as you just said, the mile marker should be about 3 to 6 months. We'll start to see some solid, significant changes.
Yeah, and I think with having Bruce Pritchard back as well, that would be good for Eric because they've become very friendly over the past few years with their respective podcasts. So I think, and obviously they worked together in the past when they were both in WWE, but I think having Bruce back to kind of like help guide Eric and just get him back in the swing of things and just kind of familiarize him with a whole nother aspect of the company this time, I think that'll be good for Eric, so maybe he won't be as overwhelmed. I think it'll just be like a smooth transition for him to just get back into the groove of things. But I'm curious to see the changes, and I think too, part of me was wondering when the announcement was first made, with them just being so detailed about it, do you think they'll just maybe 1 week, maybe next week, which I hope they don't, but it wouldn't surprise me nowadays. Do you think they'll have like another like impromptu superstar shakeup? Since we know who's leaving which brand, do you think they would even contemplate going in that direction, or do you think that's just not even a possibility?
I wouldn't, and the reason I wouldn't is fans are already confused as it is.
Right.
I don't even know. Seriously, if you put a gun to my head, I could not tell you who's on what brand anymore. I could probably get about 75% of it, but it doesn't even seem like there's a brand split anymore. It just doesn't. The wild card really, really, really watered down so much of that. You just kind of go, nothing is a surprise anymore. You already know with this wild card rule that it's not really a wild card rule. It's put our top 4 stars on both shows. That's the rule. It's not a wild card rule because there's no rule to it. It's just show up when you want. And it doesn't really matter if it's 4 people, because if you're a tag team, that really counts as 1. The math is all wrong. The concept is terrible in execution, and you already know who's going to show up to the show. So that purpose and that want to make it unpredictable with this wild card rule did just the opposite. So to do another superstar shakeup, I think wouldn't really do anything because there isn't really a true brand split anymore.
Yeah, fair. I agree with you, and I hope they don't, but it's just with me, and like when I saw the colors behind their respective pictures, I was just like, oh man, like I wonder, just for like a shock value as well. So I was just contemplating like if they would even think to do something, because Vince with the whole wild card thing, and it's just like I can't put anything by him, so I feared. I was like, please don't, but it wouldn't surprise me.
No, it wouldn't. And also with the whole Eric Bischoff getting back into the swing of things, I think for him, he's got such a good mind for the business. And I heard him a couple times on the Stone Cold podcast, and he still loves wrestling. He never really shut the door on ever returning in some kind of executive or management role. He never truly shut the door on that. He had other ventures, of course, that he pursued, and I think for him, coming back to WWE, even as toxic as some of the environment may be, he still understands at the core how to promote a wrestling business. And I know that's a dirty word to Vince McMahon, but at the core, that's what you are. You may say you're entertainment, but what is entertainment? You have professional wrestlers. That's your entertainment. And I think for Eric, it's just going to be like riding a bike. You just don't forget. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. That's how I want this to do. This is what worked last time. This is what didn't work. And for Eric, I think it really will be just as simple as that, but not easy, given the corporate environment, how many moving pieces they have, how many writers they have, and they're constantly, it seems like a revolving door when it comes to the creative there. However, 20, 30 writers that they have. And for Eric, I imagine that he will probably only want to hear from a few and not 30 different ideas as Vince McMahon has been doing, and changing his mind last minute, rewriting the show 50 minutes before the show goes on the air. You hear all these different things that have been validated, through Jon Moxley, through several other podcasts and everything else. So I think Eric will bring a sense of control and calmness back when you have somebody like this at the helm. And same goes for Paul Heyman. I can't discount him either. I think Paul Heyman has been with the product more consistently, obviously, since he's been with Brock Lesnar since he returned back in 2012 against John Cena. So Paul Heyman is much more educated on the day-to-day of WWE, and I'm sure that Paul and Eric will have a face-to-face meeting, and Paul is going to, I'm sure, get Eric up to speed and give him the do's and don'ts. And yes, you may have been successful, but here's the culture in WWE today, and here's what you should do and not do.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I'm excited. I think it is a good step all in all. Cause it's, I think in a certain way admitting Vince is aware that a change needed to be made or something needed to be changing on each show, especially going forward with SmackDown. If they're going to, just completely revamp the product, and especially with AEW coming aboard. I don't think this really had anything to do with them, like if they were concerned about competition or anything like that. But I think, maybe it was definitely in the back of their mind. But I'm just curious to see what this means going forward for WWE as a whole. So.
No, look, I mean, overall, to kind of wrap this up, I think that this is a good move all in all. It got people talking. It puts a little bit of credibility and stability, at least on the surface. We haven't seen anything in execution yet of, okay, look, we've got these two brilliant minds who are heading up the creative on both brands. We created new positions for them. We hear you that the creative sucks, and it sucks terribly. And we hear you. We are also going to soothe the minds of Fox executives here. You guys know them. There are no better minds to put in charge than these two. But at the same time, if we look back 6 months from now and say, yeah, they're behind the scenes, but what are they doing? I think there should be a take the temperature time, and I think that time would be 3 months and then 6 months. And if there are no creative changes, and if you are seeing the same thing, the same mistakes, and if it's even getting worse, then you could say that, okay, this was nothing more than a move to appease the fans, that in execution, they really didn't do anything, and Vince McMahon is still running the show A to Z. So,
yeah, I hope not, but we'll see.
I don't know. I'm just hesitantly excited, but I'm overall excited.
Same.
All right, so the next big item that I wanted to talk about, I think, at least in my mind, the next biggest item of the week was The Undertaker returning to Monday Night Raw.
Yes.
And choke-slamming Shane to hell and knocking Drew McIntyre over the ropes. And there's rumors flying about that Drew McIntyre is going to be Undertaker's opponent for WrestleMania 36. So, did you see this one coming? What were your thoughts on all this?
I definitely did not. That was probably the last thing that I would have ever expected. I'm very intrigued by this. I think this could go a lot of different directions. And I'm, part of me earlier today when I was just like replaying everything that happened this week, and I just thought, I was like, I wonder if, now this is going to sound crazy, but I wonder if they can kind of play the angle where Undertaker came back to help Roman, obviously by saving him from having Shane hit the, what is it called, the coast to coast on him. But I wonder if they can try to play it up and have Undertaker, cut some promos with him and just like, especially behind the scenes, but have Roman turn heel on the Undertaker, and then maybe they can have like their final blow off feud at SummerSlam. It's just a crazy thought. I do think Drew is the way to go with this. I think Drew would get the most rub out of a program with The Undertaker, because we really don't need to see another program with him and Roman. So I'm hoping they do go with Drew, but I was just curious if they were to twist it in any way and give us something that we definitely didn't expect.
That's not even something I've kind of, and look, I'm all for it. Like what you just said, I hope happens, but I have really kind of thrown in the towel over the last 5 years of trying to have WWE turn Roman heel. I have been on that bandwagon, and there have been so many perfect opportunities in which they could have pulled the trigger, and it would have been magic watching him get destroyed by the crowd. It just would be awesome. But the problem with all of that is one person only, Vince
Yeah.
McMahon. And he just came back from a fight with cancer. He's a perfect inspiration to all the charities that they work with. Visiting kids. They just can't do it. And the time, I think, right, at least in the short term, has passed for that. If they do it, I would be the first one to stand up and applaud and shake their hand. I mean, really, I have been on that bandwagon forever. So, do I think it's going to happen? No. Would I want it to happen? Of course. Now, Undertaker, my whole take on it is, did not see that coming, was awesome, I popped, and we all just seem to crap on The Undertaker for how terrible he is in ring. And we all remember the Goldberg match from a few weeks ago at the Saudi Arabia event, and it was awful. And Undertaker has, even though Goldberg was terrible, Undertaker didn't hold up his end. Undertaker is just flat out old. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. He is just breaking down, and it's just human nature and Mother Nature just telling him it's time to stop this, and all of that. But all right, guys, so as we get older, hair loss is just part of what we have to deal with, right? And I'm 34 years old, and I can already see it taking place. And you all know about the foam you can put on your head and the invasive surgeries you can have and hair transplants, all of that. Well, what if there was an easier way to do it and a safer way? And that is through scalp micropigmentation. So Star Micropigmentation, they're the leaders in the scalp micropigmentation. It's the newest non-invasive solution to thinning hair and balding. And at Star Micropigmentation, they use the most sophisticated device and needles specifically engineered for the scalp. So they ensure that it's the most natural-looking results. You can go to their website if you want to check it out at scalptattoostore.com, or you can call them at 844-TAT-HAIR. That's 844-TAT-HAIR, or the scalptattoostore.com. And at Star Micropigmentation, they also offer a certification, so you can join them in this booming industry. And I checked out the website, guys, and I'm really impressed. You should see some of the results that they have posted up there. You can also get trained, as I said, in being able to provide this to other people. So check out the scalptattoostore.com today. Putting that all aside, it's easy to jump on the bandwagon of Undertaker. Oh my God, he needs to give it up, blah, blah. We need to appreciate just how special these moments are when we're still seeing the Undertaker competing. Yeah. And yes, he is, of course, a shell of what he was. We know that. And I don't want to remember the Undertaker, hanging on too long. And he's just one of those guys. It's like, oh my God, just retire. Enough. I don't want to feel like that. And I've forced myself to just say, look, these are the moments that you're not going to get back seeing The Undertaker, the greatest of all time, you can make an argument of. Certainly the longest lasting of all time. And him to come back and hit a really good looking chokeslam on Shane.
Yeah,
credit. It was like an old school chokeslam.
Yeah,
that brought
beautiful.
Me back to like the late 90s and all that. Like, it felt like an old school chokeslam, and clearly credit to Shane McMahon, who's got springs in his legs to be able to jump that high. So awesome. It just looked great. A complete turnaround from the Goldberg chokeslam, just a few weeks ago. I mean, the complete opposite. I mean, my grandmother could jump higher than Goldberg did that night. So it was just cool to see. It felt like a throwback. I would love to see an Undertaker and Drew McIntyre match. I think Drew could make Undertaker look very good, and that is what Undertaker needs right now, is somebody younger, faster, can sell their ass off, and can make the Undertaker look better than he is at this point in his career, and that person could easily be Drew McIntyre.
Definitely, and I think that should be the obvious route for them going forward with this whole program. But I think him and Undertaker would have a phenomenal match. I think Drew is the right guy if you're gonna, especially if it's gonna be Undertaker's final match, to have him go against someone like Drew, because Drew could really get a great rub off of Undertaker. So I really hope that that's where this leads. And I'm curious to see what they do at Extreme Rules and how the tag team match goes. I think having Undertaker in a tag team match in general is probably a better idea, because it's less wear and tear, less work that he actually has to do, and Roman can carry it for them, or the majority of it. And then, Taker can get the hot tag, come in, get the pin, if that's the route that they go. But I'm happy that, we got a nice little surprise and a nice treat, and it's good to see Taker back on Raw, and it's fun to see him in an actual program going forward.
It is. I've said this in my show earlier this week, a couple of my shows earlier this week, is I just would like an explanation. I hope we get one.
Yes,
definitely. Where, Undertaker, it's awesome to see you. You had an awesome night on Monday night. Why are you here? What prompted you to chokeslam Shane, to side with Roman and knock out Drew McIntyre? Why are you back? And I could see WWE easily ignoring this, going, well, it's just Undertaker. He can do what he wants, and it doesn't matter. Fans are just excited to see him. Well, no, yes, I'm excited to see him, but you guys are all about storytelling. Tell me the story. Give me anything. Was Undertaker just pissed off about, I don't know, the shoes Shane McMahon was wearing? I don't care. Give me anything. And
right.
I just hope they don't ignore that, but I could see them doing it. So I don't know what the reason would be, but just please give me one.
Right there with you on that.
It's sad that we even have to ask them to do that. But
I think for this one they will, because there's enough important people involved in this angle that they can't not address something like that.
True, and especially if the rumors are true that Undertaker is going after and wants Drew McIntyre to be his WrestleMania 36 opponent. And could that be Undertaker's final match? I don't know, maybe. Again, I said this earlier this week, but I'm sure we're the first people to ever speculate on the Undertaker's retirement, and maybe it will be his final match. My prediction on the Undertaker's final match is probably WrestleMania 37, and the reason I say that is they want to get to that round number of 30 for the Undertaker. He will hit that at next year's Survivor Series, but it's so big that you would want Undertaker to just last a few more months. Get to WrestleMania. WrestleMania 37, I think, will be his final match, and then they can say 3 decades of destruction or 30 years of. They could market that 30.
Oh yeah,
really,
they would
really well. So that's my thought.
Right on. I didn't even think about that, but that's so true. And I actually kind of hope they do that, because that kind of gave me goosebumps a little bit, because I love the Undertaker. Like, I made a special trip to New York. That was this past summer, to see him at Madison Square Garden. So I love Undertaker. So I hope they do that for him. He deserves it.
There's no question.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, it just makes total sense. I mean, my God, you're a year away. The Undertaker can come and go as he pleases. Why wouldn't they just make it? And it doesn't have
to be anything big. Like, the match doesn't have to be anything, very competitive. Nope. Just a simple match.
It really doesn't even matter who it's against. It really doesn't. Yeah. It needs to be somebody. I will say this: out of all the qualifications, as low as they may be, it still needs to be against somebody that they feel could be the future of WWE. I mean, it doesn't have to be a top guy, but it needs to be somebody who's younger and can make him look and take the bumps that are necessary, while Undertaker can go at a slow, methodical pace, and somebody that could get the rub off Undertaker in his final few matches. So those are really the only qualifications. So but those are my thoughts on Undertaker's retirement. Would be at WrestleMania 37. But time will tell. So next thing I wanted to talk about, and maybe I'm missing something here, but it's kind of the thing is, after I get through these top 2 items, unless I'm missing something, the rest of them seem to be a little bit interchangeable. So my next item that I had was Ricochet winning the United States title, because we really didn't talk about Stomping Grounds too much, and Ricochet winning surprised a lot of people. I actually went out on a crazy limb and predicted that Ricochet would win it, because WWE has done nothing with Samoa Joe, and Ricochet is the more exciting star, he's the upcoming star, all that. And he ended up winning. So were you excited about this? Did you see it coming?
I did not see it coming. I think I like it and I don't like it. I like it for Ricochet, because I feel like this is great for someone like him to win a title, and I think he will be one of those hardworking champions. And maybe they can do something creative like the Open Challenge, maybe not that necessarily, but just something, just have him be like the workhorse of the show, whereas Seth Rollins had been about a year and a half ago. So I think I really like that for him. I think Ricochet obviously is super easy to get over with the fans, like young kids like him, and he's fun to watch. I don't like it for Samoa Joe though, because Joe, I was really just hoping that they would give him this title reign and just let him play it out for 6 months, and have just a substantial title run. But then next thing I knew, he attacked Kofi Kingston, so now he has a WWE title match. So I guess I was disappointed, and then I guess it's just confusing, because how do you lose a championship and then just attack another champion and then just get a title shot that way? So I think the logic, of course, is just something that I wasn't really a fan of, and it doesn't really make sense. But hey, if they do something crazy and actually, pull the trigger with Joe winning the WWE title, I'm definitely all for it, but I don't have a good feeling with it.
Yeah, you kind of hit all the nails on the head with what I've been talking about all week. And while I was not excited to see Ricochet win the United States Championship, because I want WWE to give Samoa Joe a legitimate run, a roll, get on a roll, be a monster, be unstoppable. And he has that. He has the look. He has the most believable promos in the business. And he continues to just lose and lose and lose. And then, as you just said, which is my biggest complaint about him being in this WWE Championship match, which that's the only complaint. I'm glad he's in the prominent spot, in the top spot for the most prestigious belt in the business. But the problem is, number one, he attacked the champion. So that's apparently the way to get a championship match, by the way. You just attack the champion and you're automatically awarded a championship match, which, by the way, I mean, that's just how you do it.
It's so weird.
It's just when you think about it, so that makes everybody qualified for the championship. Any championship. You just attack the champion backstage, in their car, in their bedroom, in the ring. It doesn't matter. You just attack them, and you are ultimately just, okay, well, here's your championship match. It's ridiculous. What's more ridiculous is, okay, Samoa Joe attacked him. WWE automatically awarded him with a championship match. But unless I'm wrong, because I watched the Hulu version of Raw, I don't believe that they explained why he's getting a championship match. Did Kofi Kingston burst into the McMahon's office and say, I want a match with Samoa Joe at Extreme Rules. I don't care if I have to put my championship on the line. I don't think they did that. I don't recall seeing any of that in the playbacks of Raw.
I don't either. No, I don't think so either. And that was one of my main complaints. But like you said, the only complaint, because I think it's going to be a great match, but it's just, the issue with your show is creativity and storylines. When you literally have an opportunity to create a storyline in a program and something that could last for potentially a few months, I don't understand why they don't just go with it. I feel like it's harder to not go with it than it is to go with it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that does make total sense. It does, and I would just like them to. Unfortunately, the thing is that this is such basic storytelling. My 5-year-old nephew could come up with a more coherent, basic storyline than what is presented. I mean, I'm being unfortunately, I wish I was joking, but sometimes stuff like this, as much as I love Samoa Joe, I want him in this spot. This is what I want. Yes, so okay, WWE, you gave me what I wanted. At least he didn't win the belt yet, but he's in the spot I want him in. But how did you get there? This is the problem. You jump from A to D, and what about B and C? Just tell me anything. You could have Kofi. It would take 15 seconds to have him barge in the office and just start freaking out on management and demanding a match with Samoa Joe. Fine. Even that I would be totally cool with, but they just go, oh, well, Samoa Joe attacked him, here's your championship match. I mean, it happened. This is, unfortunately, not the only time that it's happened with WWE, but I digress. But so on to what I actually think about the match. I don't think he'll win, which is the problem that I have with him being now out of the U.S. title picture. I was like, oh, he's moving to the the WWE Championship. But the problem is he's just being used as a pawn for Kofi Kingston to overcome. He's another hurdle for him to jump over. He's another mountain for him to climb. It's just about Kofi Kingston right now. And look, I love Kofi. I think he's a good champion. I like the ride. But the problem is the ride is not over yet, because it's not time for it to be over. Even though I love Samoa Joe and I want him to be champion, it's still too soon after WrestleMania for Kofi to drop the belt. At least in my estimation. I would think that Kofi won't drop it. Minimum would be SummerSlam, probably not until later in the year. I wouldn't bet my house on it, but I would say that it's a very, very solid chance that Kofi Kingston will retain at Extreme Rules. Samoa Joe, though, playing Fantasyland here, if he does win, I will lose my mind, to put it nicely. I mean, I was going to say another word, but I will. Because I would say yes, and that would send a message to fans. We're going a different direction now. You guys have had your time to celebrate with Kofi. You all went on the ride with him from Elimination Chamber through the 11 years to now. You guys celebrated. He had a WrestleMania moment, blah, blah, blah. It is now time for the heels to take over. When you look at the number of babyface champions in WWE, it's overwhelming. Outside of the tag team division, it's overwhelmingly babyface champions. And it's time to start having heels win back those belts. And I've been clamoring and just salivating for a Samoa Joe WWE and or Universal Championship, just massive heel run that lasts 6 to 12 months. I need it. I crave it. It has to happen.
I know. I so hope it does. He deserves it. He's one of those guys who has put in the work and then some, and they just need to pull the trigger on him. They just need to let him have it. And like you said, I don't think it's going to be at Extreme Rules against Kofi Kingston, unfortunately. I think they should, obviously. I think we got what we wanted. Like you said, we got Kofi winning the celebration, everything like that, but they don't owe it to us to keep him as champion at this point. And I'm curious to see who out of the 3 champions loses their title first, if it's going to be Kofi, Seth, or Becky. So that's just, every time we have a pay-per-view now, I'm just sitting there thinking like, oh, is it going to be Seth? Is it going to be Becky? But when you were sitting there talking about Joe, something else crossed my mind, because Kofi is the champion on SmackDown and Samoa Joe was on Raw, but he attacked the SmackDown champion. So now he's facing their champion, kind of like Alexa Bliss is, or something very similar. Why? I just really hope they play out the story, because why would Joe attack Kofi? If he really wants a title opportunity, why wouldn't he attack Seth?
Yeah, you would think. I mean, I don't
Unless
know.
I missed something as well.
Yeah, no, you didn't. I mean, that would make the most sense. But they clearly looked at Joe and said, "There's nobody else on SmackDown right now that you can go up against as an opponent that would be credible." And they just, I mean, it seemed like kind of a knee-jerk reaction almost. In what they did is just, I mean, as terrible as his run with the United States Championship was, it seemed like there wasn't a lot of long-term planning here. They just was like, oh, well, who's next for Kofi? Well, I don't know. Have Samoa Joe drop the belt and put him in the championship picture. And if that's the case, then that tells me that the championship isn't going absolutely anywhere. And furthermore, not just about Samoa Joe and Kofi, but the championships in general. Like, how does this work? Like, if say the SmackDown Women's Championship, say Bayley loses her championship to a Raw superstar, does the SmackDown Championship stay on Raw? I mean, but it's on Raw, so Raw has its own championships. They don't. These are the things that I don't know. So if you're from another brand and you're going for the championship on your opposing brand, I would assume that you're probably not going to win, because it would be extremely messy to have you just. What if you don't decide to? You utilize the wild card rule. You just stay on your home brand and you just hide the championship for the rest of your life. I mean, these things are just hurt my mind. They hurt my brain because it's never addressed. But I don't know. Like, I think that ultimately Joe's going to lose, and if there's a rematch, I'll get more excited. As I said in my show earlier this week, I think that the further away we get from WrestleMania, obviously, the better chance of these 3 individuals losing their belts. Mm-hmm. If you were going to ask me which of the 3 loses first, I would probably say Kofi, and the reason is because Seth is the guy right now that he slayed the beast. He's the guy that they're clearly trying to build the company around right now. He's younger than Kofi Kingston is. Becky Lynch was in the main event of WrestleMania, the first ever women's WrestleMania main event. And she beat Ronda Rousey, who's never been beat. I think out of all 3, Becky will hold the belt the longest. Then I think it'll be Seth. Then I think it'll be Kofi. So the earliest, as I said, SummerSlam. But if Samoa Joe gets a rematch, then we'll be talking again at the next pay-per-view, which is SummerSlam, I believe. I don't think there's another one between Extreme Rules and SummerSlam.
Yeah, I don't think so.
So, yeah, if there's a rematch at SummerSlam, this could be a different conversation, and I could get a little bit more excited.
Right there with you.
But speaking of the women and the men, with this Becky and Seth pairing against Corbin and Lacey Evans at Extreme Rules, winner take all. What I mean, I honestly, like, we all want to see this rivalry with both individuals end, and I think this is the way to get there. I don't see Corbin and Lacey winning. It seems, and this is what the part that scares me, that Lacey Evans and Corbin, it seems to be a slam dunk that they're going to lose, which scares me when I'm thinking of Vince McMahon's mind going, they think they're both going to lose. This seems to be a total slam dunk, and Vince has been known to do the swerve just for the simple sake of swerves at times. So that's my fear, and I know this isn't a prediction show, but this one seems pretty damn obvious to me.
Yeah, I literally thought the same thing. Because since it is such a given that Seth and Becky are going to win, it wouldn't shock me to see Vince just pull that card and just, and he could do something very I guess, quote unquote creative with it, the fall and whoever ends up taking the pin and, how it happens and all that. And I obviously hope he doesn't, but I'm just, and like you said, this isn't a prediction show, but I think it's pretty obvious that Seth and Becky need to win this and they need to squash this feud and just be done with it. But I'm terrified that Vince, does the unthinkable with this and just pulls that trigger with them. But I don't know. But I'm like, it's kind of weird to me to see Seth and Becky on screen, just expressing their relationship or just like acknowledging it. And acknowledging it is fine, I think, but it's just, I feel like it's forced with them right now. I think they would be better if they were just doing like little things and not maybe in a program together right off the bat, but it's just kind of weird to me. Maybe it's just me, but it's just kind of a weird vibe.
Yeah, I can see where while they are a real couple in obviously real life, it does feel a little bit strange because we've never seen a love interest for Becky or Seth on TV. I think that's part of it. They've always just been straight about wrestling and winning championships. So it is a little weird, and I think for them it's probably a little weird that, and who knows how long they were actually dating before it went public, and then WWE was like, oh, well, everyone knows now, let's bring it on camera. So maybe they were dating for a year or more, and they were trying to keep it private, and they were very private and concealed about their life beyond the cameras. And so it is probably a little weird for them, like, how do we act? Do we act like we normally do backstage? Yeah. Do we act like our characters, but kind of like we normally are when we're not, on TV? So I'm sure that they aren't really sure, and they're trying to find their footing of how far they should go or what they should do without, killing their character. It's a weird and a fine line and a balance. So it probably will be a little awkward until they really become comfortable. And again, that's assuming that this is more than just this one pay-per-view that these two are going to be teaming up. I don't know if this is a long-term deal. I wouldn't make it a long-term deal because they both have separate championships. They can't win anything. They can't win tag team championships together. There's really not much they can do outside of this tag team match together, and hopefully this is just a one and done, and maybe in passing in the hallway or something. But I don't want to see Becky in Seth's corner for all of his matches, or Seth in Becky's corner. I don't need that. They need to go their separate ways and separate paths. Yeah,
and I think I definitely agree with you. And I think that's kind of where I'm coming from with it, just because I feel like they didn't need that. I feel like if maybe they weren't as strong of characters as they were in a different position on the card, it would kind of make sense. You have this thing going on in real life, why not use it on TV for your characters? But I feel like they were two of the strongest characters on Raw, and I think they didn't need the storyline. So I think that was kind of my thing, why? You don't need to, you can address it and just like you said, do little things in the backstage, like passing each other like they would on the ramp, here and there. But it's just a weird dynamic. But I think this is going to be a good closure match for both of their individual storylines with Seth and Baron and Becky and Lacey. I think this is a good end point for both of those, and then Seth and Becky can move on to their respective new challengers. So I hope that's the direction they go with it, of course. So it should be a good match, though. It should be entertaining.
Oh, yeah, I have no doubt that this is going to be just solid mechanically, ultimately ending in a stomp or a disarmer or whatever. I mean, I'm fine with it. I think that we know the outcome of the match, and that's fine. Sometimes predictable is not a bad thing when it's the right thing. I say it all the time. And this is the right thing to do, is not surprise us and swerve us just for the sake of swerving. It's the right thing to do to just move on. I mean, it's time. It's time to just have Baron Corbin move away from Seth, and it's time for Lacey to move away from Becky. It's just that. It's just natural progression here. We've seen it enough. And actually, I was listening to a bit of a snippet. Was it early today or yesterday on Busted Open Radio? Which, by the way, I mean, I'll give them a free plug. I like them. I love Bully Ray. And,
me too.
They're really good. LaGreca, they're really good. And earlier they were talking about Baron Corbin having the go away heat, and he was saying that, Baron Corbin has go-away heat. Isn't that what heels are, that's the point of being a heel,
right.
All that. Well, yes, it's the point of you hating the person, but at the same time, the go-away heat that we're describing is the go-away heat that makes you change the channel or skip through or speed up so you don't have to see them or see them talk. Like, if it's turning your audience away, and that's what's meant by go-away heat, that's not good heat. And you may say, oh, if heels get any heat, that's good heat. No. Good heat is when you want to see them and you will pay to see them get their ass kicked. At this point, like, I've seen Baron Corbin get his ass kicked so many times, I'm just tired of seeing him on my TV screen. That's the go-away heat. That's the difference.
Yeah, I agree. And I think once he's done with Seth, I think he needs to go away for a while. His character, he just needs to, even if it's just for a month, but just go away for a while and just I don't want to say let us miss him, because I don't think we would, but just give his character a break and just move on to something new. And then when he comes back, maybe have him feud with Ricochet if he's still champion, and just move on to something different. But just get out of that main event spot to where we can just maybe start to hate him because of his character, because of his actual heel heat and not go away heat or anything like that. So I think once he's done with Seth, they owe it to him to let him just kind of take a break and a step back and just refresh himself and just, focus on the United States Championship at that point. If it's still on Raw or wherever it is, or whatever secondary title they have on Raw at that point.
I've been advocating for him to just disappear for a couple of months for quite a while. Again, I think Baron Corbin is very sound fundamentally. I think he cuts a very good promo, good to very good. I give him BB+ in his promos. He is very obnoxious. He's good at making you want to see him get his ass kicked. All check. That's what you want for a heel. But
Definitely.
it's just overexposure, and you could really say that about a lot of stars that are overexposed. But Baron Corbin he's to the point of like, okay, can we move on to somebody else? Like,
right.
And you just said he needs to just take some time off. I was hopeful that after he got his impromptu Raw general manager gig killed by Vince McMahon, that he was fired from that he would just kind of fade into the darkness and go away for a little while. What do you see? The next night on Raw, or the next week on Raw, he's back out in his after prom suit, and he's in there, and just like nothing happened, and he still felt like the Raw general manager. And they tried to pin the entire tanking of ratings on Baron Corbin, even though we all know it's just creative and Vince McMahon. But they tried to pin it on him, and I was like, okay, well maybe he's fired. He's gonna be gone for a little while. Nope, he's just there, and he's there, and he's there, and he's there. And it's just, but I don't see him going anywhere. I mean, as much as we may wish for all of what we're saying to happen, I don't think he's going anywhere. I think we're going to see him every single week.
Me too. Me too.
You sound so excited.
Yeah.
It's just, and again, like I'm a Baron Corbin fan as a heel. Like, he's a good heel.
And that's what's frustrating, because I'm sorry not to cut you off, but it's frustrating because I want to dislike him. I want to not like him, but you're forcing me to not like him so much that, like, I'm starting to, like, not feel bad for him, but just be like, just whatever. Like, okay, it's Baron Corbin. Yeah, I know you're a bad guy, but whatever. Like, I want to boo him when he comes out. Like, if I'm in the arena, I want to have that feeling. But now it's just like, yeah, he comes out, he's whatever cities they're in, favorite son. Like, I get that, cool, but, like, it's literally the same thing every week. And just let him take a step back and grow. And then he can move back up to that spot eventually. He doesn't have to be gone forever. Just let him breathe. But then it's like, who is Seth's next opponent? Not, taking Brock out of the equation on Raw.
Right. And I think
that's part of the problem.
Yep. I think they're in a holding pattern. I think that's exactly where they are, is a holding pattern. And I think that should shift at Extreme Rules, because then they go into the second biggest pay-per-view of the year of SummerSlam.
Oh, yeah.
So they have to shift gears.
And they can't do Corbin and Rollins at SummerSlam. So they have to. This has to be it.
Yeah. There can't be a swerve here, because what happens? What if you have a Seth Rollins, and what are you going to have, a Seth Rollins Baron Corbin rematch because Seth just dropped the belt to Baron? I mean, you can't. You can't. This one, there's nowhere to. I don't even see room to swerve with Vince McMahon. I just don't see it. But yeah, just again, wrapping up the Baron Corbin deal, I just, as you said, like, I dislike him, but I don't dislike him enough to give him the credit to boo him, if that makes sense, because like.
Exactly.
I just see him and I'm like, yeah, I don't really like this guy. I'm just kind of tired of seeing him. I think I'll hate him a lot more if he goes away, adds a little bit of something to his character that makes him just sinister, and makes me just really, really hate him, and come back after a month and go, oh, that SOB, then I
exactly.
It just is like, it just feels very formulaic with Baron. And Vince McMahon is enamored with him, clearly, and for whatever reason that may be. But I don't know. But Baron Corbin, just take a vacation. I don't know. Do something. Take a Kurt Angle vacation. I don't know. So moving on a little bit more to Finn Balor and Nakamura. Now, there's not a whole lot here because we haven't seen them really do anything for the Intercontinental Championship. But I'll give my quick thoughts on it, which isn't a whole lot. I think this match could be very good, although Nakamura has strongly disappointed so far in WWE. And I don't know if that's just a troublesome, really transitioning from the Japan style into WWE style. I'm not sure what the problem is with Nakamura, since winning the Royal Rumble and main eventing WrestleMania and then losing to AJ Styles and turning heel, and probably the best part of his whole gimmick was no speak English, and then which was the best. And now he is just kind of fading into the black after Rusev is MIA, taking some time off, and Nakamura is now challenging Finn Balor for the Intercontinental Championship, clearly. So I don't know if I don't know who's going to win this. Finn is also kind of floating out there in no man's land. So I honestly don't feel strongly one way or the other who's going to hold the belt. But more importantly, I don't feel a whole lot of, at least, emotion for this rivalry yet anyway. What about you?
Yeah, and that's the problem for me. Like, I'm sure it's going to be a great match, but just think, like, this could have been such a big deal, this match finally happening, because they're both phenomenal in the ring. It would be a fun match to watch. And that's, like, the saddest part of this storyline or this match is there's literally no build up, and I'm sure we'll get some, but like, just think like if Nakamura was a strong character, like what this could have meant. But like I said, I think it'll be a good match. I'm excited just to see the match itself, but I don't really expect there to be too much going into it, unfortunately, as much as I wish there would be. But yeah, I don't know. I think it wouldn't surprise me to see Nakamura win. But I think Finn would retain here, and then they could probably have a rematch or something. But yeah, I don't know. I hope they give us a reason to look forward to this match. So we'll see.
When you look at this on paper, if you wrote this down on paper, Finn Balor versus Shinsuke Nakamura two and a half years ago,
that could main event, like you would expect it to.
People would be losing their minds over the potential of that match. And unfortunately, due again to creative, and you got to put some blame on Shinsuke too, and really, I don't know, to a lesser extent to Finn Balor, you got to put a little blame on them, is that they've both been, Shinsuke much more so, defined down to a point of almost mid to lower card for Shinsuke. You talk about a fall from grace.
Yeah.
Shinsuke has just bottomed out to a point of, when he came in and when the interviewer asked Finn, what's next, who's your next challenger, and then you had Shinsuke come in, and obviously that's just a sign of, it's going to be me. That just kind of told me that, oh wow, oh yeah, Shinsuke's still here. That's right. I mean, I can't believe I said that. I'm like, oh, Shinsuke Nakamura's still here. I thought, I didn't know where he was, and so that just is, it's scary to me that I'm saying that when 2 years ago people would be going insane for this match. And again, this could be easily be a 3.5, 4-star match if given enough time and motivation and proper planning and all of that. So this feud could overachieve very easily. But yeah, you look about what it could have been, the excitement it could have drawn. It's sad that you're looking in today's day and age, and 2 years later, and going, wow, really? This is how I feel about this match? That's sad.
It is because Extreme Rules is in what, 2 weeks? About 2 weeks, right?
It's about 2 weeks.
Yeah, so I mean they could do a little something within the next 2 shows, but it's just a match like that just deserves so much more. So it's just kind of disappointing.
Yeah, it is. But so moving on a little bit to something that's I guess not as disappointing, and that is Alexa Bliss and Bayley in this Nikki Cross deal, which I don't even really know where this end game ends, and especially for Nikki. I mean, we all know she's being played for a fool. Mm-hmm. We all know that Alexa is using her, and that Nikki is gone from a psycho to this sympathetic, schoolgirl that wants to just make sure she's friends with a popular girl. That's what it feels like to me, and she's just being used and played. And Nikki's looking like a fool for really buying into Alexa, and I don't even know what drew her to Alexa to begin with. And when you look at the track record of what Alexa Bliss has done to Mickie James, to Nia Jax, it's just, how does Nikki Cross not see this? And maybe she does, and maybe we're all just going to get the swerve and Nikki turns on Alexa. Who knows? But we all kind of see what the end game is going to be, and that's Alexa either getting caught talking trash, just like she did with Nia, or I don't know. But I think that's the end game, ultimately ending in a Nikki Cross and Alexa Bliss match. But right now, Bayley is the SmackDown Women's Champion, and so it's kind of a whole weird dynamic going on. What do you kind of feel the same way?
I do. I feel like Bayley is just like along for the ride, so to speak, but the whole focus of this particular segment is between Nikki and Alexa. So it's so weird, and like this could have played out on Raw as well. Like just sitting here thinking about it, like they're both Raw superstars, so they could have been on Raw doing this, but it's just so kind of comical as we go through each storyline that's going on. But yeah, I think it is going to play out that way, that Nikki is just trying to, she's trying to better herself and her character and just, maybe get to Alexa's level at some point, as maybe she would put it. And then have Alexa turn on her. I think that's going to be the obvious thing. Maybe after Alexa wins, they're celebrating in the ring, Nikki's so happy for her, and then that's when Alexa turns on her or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I'm mildly entertained to see how this plays out.
And it's really hard, too, to hate Alexa Bliss.
It is.
It's so hard. And WWE does their best. And Alexa, or Lexi's real name, does a really good job at trying. And she comes across as such a snarky you-know-what. And she's so good at it. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, she's so likable at the same time. And, of course, she's extremely attractive, which doesn't hurt. And also, you have these 365 specials on her, and she's crying in these videos.
And she has a pet pig.
Yeah, like, she has a pet pig. She loves Disney. She's constantly putting on Instagram how much she loves Disney. Who the hell doesn't love Disney? And you see all these 365 about, oh my God, people, people didn't think I belonged here in the struggle I had. So she instantly becomes relatable. She instantly becomes humanized. And we're supposed to hate her on-air character? It's so difficult that, whenever she does have her babyface run, and legitimate one, not kind of a quasi, I'm the host of WrestleMania, I host this Alexa Bliss. I'm talking like a full-blown babyface run that I think it could be super successful. Maybe not quite to the level of Becky Lynch when she was at her hottest, but I wouldn't rule it out, because that's hard to achieve. But at the same time, it could be a hell of a run if they go full force with this. But I'm just, again, my point is just, I'm having a hard time hating Alexa Bliss. I've had a hard time hating her.
Me too. I'm right there with you. I've always been an Alexa Bliss fan, just because me just seeing her trying to be a heel, it shows how talented she is. So it makes me want her to be a babyface even more so she can get that appreciation. But she's phenomenal at what she does. So anything she does, I'm going to be into because she just is that talented and she can carry pretty much anything that she's involved in. So yeah, I'm happy that she's at least doing something now and she's actually wrestling again and everything medically appears to be cleared up. So that's always a good sign.
It is. I mean, for a while, I mean, she was good to go, and then gets injured again, good to go, gets injured, and yeah, I felt for her not being able to compete at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Obviously, her standing on stage with Hulk Hogan. I mean, I'm sure that was a hell of a moment for her too, but I know that she wanted to be in that ring competing at WrestleMania. I mean, who wouldn't want to be? So I felt for her, the person. So when you wrap all this together, it's just like I'm bursting for her to just turn babyface. I don't believe she's been officially a babyface in WWE outside of the weird little few months she had as the, I don't know, head of the women's division that Baron Corbin put her in charge of, and some kind of the moment of bliss in which she kind of played a babyface in some roles. That doesn't count to me. I'm talking about like full blown. We haven't gotten that yet, so I'm waiting for it. I know that many other people are too. So another thing that I'm really liking too, though, is the 24/7 championship. And before I give my thoughts on this, did you see, I'm sure you did, R-Truth interrupting Drake Maverick's wedding and hitting him in the aisle, I believe it was, or close to the altar. I don't know. I think it was the aisle.
Yeah.
And then having Drake Maverick chase him off, telling his wife, "I'm sorry," and then subsequently she tweets out she wants a divorce,
yes.
and then he's sitting there at a bar with bottles surrounding him. So just the preposterousness of this is just exactly what it is, and I don't know, I'm enjoying it. What about you?
Oh, I couldn't have said it better myself. I love it. And it's just sitting there listening to that. I just remember when it was first introduced, and I was like, man, what is this? What is going on? And then it's just becoming like a guilty pleasure. Like, it's just one of the things I look forward to on the show, just to see what crazy stuff they're going to do. And I just love the social media aspect of it more so than it even being on TV, for that matter. It's just fun. Like, I like that they're not taking this too seriously, obviously, and just letting them kind of have more freedom to do like crazy things like that. And his wife's tweet just like made it that much better. So it was great.
It's I don't know. I'm with you, and the chemistry that Drake and R-Truth have is, again, something that you just can't manufacture. It just kind of has happened. And Drake Maverick just, for weeks, looking around and putting on social media that, putting up wanted posters, just craziness. I mean, I love what they're doing with R-Truth and Drake Maverick. At the same time, when on Monday Night Raw, when Heath Slater won the 24/7 championship, I was actually like, oh, okay, I could see Heath being champion.
Yeah.
Like, he kind of is in that same role as R-Truth, and he could be also a good candidate. And so whenever R-Truth does drop the belt and kind of stays out of that loop for a while, I'm cool with Heath Slater being the 24/7 champion and being in his trailer and doing crazy things with his kids and whatever. I mean, eating Cheese Whiz with Rhino. I don't care.
Yes.
Like, you could do a lot with Heath Slater too as 24/7 champion.
That would be great. I would love that so much because Heath Slater is just one of those entertaining characters. Like, he can get anything over. So he would be the perfect replacement for R-Truth if R-Truth needed to drop it and take some time off or anything like that. But I would love to see Heath get involved in this more so. So hopefully they do that.
I hope so. I mean, I don't think that this craziness is going anywhere anytime soon because the creative freedom that WWE has with this championship is almost unlimited.
Oh,
and I'm
yeah.
sure they love that. Hey, if you're on the 24/7 creative team, that creative, behind the scenes team of like, okay, you guys are this team of 6, you guys are doing the 24/7 championship. I would love to be on that team because it's almost impossible to get killed for what your ideas are because the more ridiculous, the better. So, again, I think this is a good idea. Is it going to last forever? No, it'll eventually die out. People will get sick of it. But I don't know. I'm on board for it right now. I'm totally on board. So, another thing that, as I'm kind of catching up here on the news of what's going on with WWE, apparently Jinder Mahal is undergoing surgery, and he's going to be out for 4 to 6 months. So that puts him and Lars Sullivan unexpectedly out of action for the next half a year. Jinder Mahal, who, I mean, it's really, when you're from a storyline perspective, is not the worst thing in the world because it wasn't doing a whole lot other than sleeping on planes and getting pinned. So, yeah, but just surprising. I did not, I don't know when this injury occurred, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's what I was just sitting here thinking. Like, I wonder, I'm trying to remember when would he have even gotten hurt? Maybe it was at like a house show or something.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I don't see anything here. Oh, it says, it says, Jinder tweeted this out, or put it on his Instagram. On the mend, ruptured my patella tendon in Denver, Colorado on June 15th in a match against Ali.
Wow.
Happy surgery went well, and my knee was better than expected. The comeback is going to be legendary. So, yeah. So that's interesting. But on the Ali deal, now, this is something I actually haven't spoken about yet. With Ali doing these promos that are like, I don't know, is he like a good Samaritan? Is he, I mean, I don't know what he's doing. I mean, have you seen these promos that he's doing, like where this woman walks out of a bar and she's, holding a bottle like she's an alcoholic, and then she just stares at Ali, and suddenly she's like cured. Have you seen these?
Oh wow, no, I haven't seen them.
Yeah, I thought at first that it was like a WWE sponsored, I don't know, organization that they're associated with, a new partnership or whatever. No, this is, I believe, a character development for Ali. You know how he was doing the promos in like the street, and you'd have the street light above him? Yeah. Well, now, and it wasn't very prominent, but I think they played it quickly on Raw and SmackDown. He's like walking around and helping people, like, and it's done in kind of an emotional way, almost a way that looks like it's a PSA, but it's him who's there to help people. It's so when you get a chance, I mean, Google it. I don't know what to make of it. Obviously, they're trying to put him in like a favorable light, and he's this good guy, good Samaritan. He wants to genuinely help people. I don't dislike it. I just don't know what to make of it. So yeah, when you get a chance, check that out. I don't know what to do with it at this point. I really don't know how you translate that into anything, but it's quite interesting. So when you get some time,
definitely will.
Let's see. So other things that are going on that I'm looking at here, and I didn't even know this about this rule that Vince McMahon has with not wrestling during commercial breaks.
Oh yeah. So they've been doing that, I think, the past 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. Especially at house shows as well, or I guess not at house shows, but they were practicing it out there where they would just like randomly stop, and then like I think the Miz was the first one to actually say like at a house show that we're gonna take a few minutes just to take a quick water break and something like to that effect. And they actually did, like they actually stopped the match. Miz went, drank some water, then they got back in the ring a few minutes later. But yeah, I think that was the whole purpose of the 2 out of 3 fall implementation as well. So I really don't know why that came about, but it's
well, yeah, I mean, from what I'm reading, because this is the first time that I've heard about this, Vince McMahon wanted to make it feel more like a authentic sports broadcast, and but I think it would do kind of the opposite if I'm sitting there.
Right.
And, if I'm in the audience, and obviously we don't know this because we're watching at home, but if I'm sitting live and I'm like, what the hell are they doing? Why? Just because there's a commercial break, they're stopping? How, so commercial breaks dictate when the rounds of this match begin and end. It's just, that to me is, yes, Vince, we need a more authentic sports simulation broadcast, but that's not one of the solutions to them. I'm not following that. Like if something happens during a commercial break, you can always catch me up. I'm fine with it.
Right.
I don't like commercial breaks during matches at all, though. Maybe stop putting commercials during matches. That would be a solution. But maybe somebody gets pinned during a commercial break. How has that never happened in the history of commercial breaks? Nobody's ever gotten pinned. Ever.
And that would be fun. Like that would be would give you even more reason to stay tuned throughout the whole show, because then you never know. Like, if it goes to commercial and then you change the channel and then you come back 5-10 minutes later and then they give you a recap of what happened during the commercial break, it's like, man, like, I can't miss anything. I have to stay in tune. And then it makes you want to go to the shows even more, because maybe you can get, like, you can be there to witness something like that. So it's just, I don't really see the negative aspect behind it to begin with.
I don't know. I don't understand it. And you would think it would just take the audience out of the moment, though.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm sitting there and I'm getting into this match and, they're going at it or whatever, and they just suddenly stop and just, like, like, I don't know, like you said, sip water? Boy, you talking about killing a crowd quick.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't understand. Like, I know that the goal is to make simulated sports more important, and I applaud that, but that's not one way you do it. So I don't know. I don't know what Vince McMahon is just on the really ultra bizarre end of the spectrum at this point. I don't know where his mind is at. I just don't. Maybe it's on the XFL, and maybe he just needs to go there and focus there. But I mean, really, just step back. Let this company, and this company will survive just fine without you. I really believe that. So, a couple more things I wanted to touch on was Shane McMahon's beatdown of The Miz again. Brutal beatdown of The Miz, and I'm a little bit tired of this program. At the same time, the programs typically don't end until the babyface prevails, and The Miz has yet to get a one-up on Shane McMahon. He has lost 2 straight matches to Shane, and now gets beat down brutally again. No Undertaker to save him, no Roman Reigns to save him. Nobody cares in the back to help Miz, and he just gets beat down again. So I would think that this match or this program somehow ends in Extreme Rules. However, he's not in a match with Shane.
Right, it's so weird.
Undertaker and Roman are in a match with Shane and Drew, and so I don't know how The Miz resolves this issue. Maybe it does go into SummerSlam with Shane. I don't know. So what's your take on all this?
It's so interesting to me to see how involved Shane is with the shows every week, and I never expected The Miz and Shane's storyline to play out this long without The Miz getting a victory at all. So that's just kind of surprising to me, and I kind of hope this is the end of their feud as well. So I hope it's just the end of Shane against Roman and Shane against The Miz after Extreme Rules somehow. So hopefully maybe Undertaker has some involvement in that, like if they have to do like a special attraction match at like SummerSlam or something and do like casket match or whatever. But it's just, I'm just kind of over Shane. He's a great heel. Like, his character is good, but I'm just kind of over him being so involved in the shows every week.
Yeah, I'm very conflicted because on one end, as you said, Shane McMahon is a 50-year-old man who has kids that are older now. They can see him wrestle, all that. I understand that. That was Goldberg's motivation when he first came back, to have his kids see him wrestle, blah, 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 all sentimental, wonderful. But again, I'm really not trying to beat it at horse, but Shane McMahon belongs nowhere near these world-class athletes. As they're presented as such, he belongs nowhere near them. And at least in a capacity of on equal footing, where Shane can hang with anybody. It's ridiculous. It's angering as a fan that we're supposed to believe that Shane is on equal footing with any of these men. I mean, really, when you think about it, it's just angering. But you put that anger aside, and Shane is just, as you said, he's too involved every single week. At the same time, though, he's also a very good heel. I want to see Shane get his ass kicked. When Roman finally speared him a couple of weeks ago on Raw, that was the first spear in the history of Roman's thousands of spears that I cheered.
Yeah,
and
same.
I mean, really, like, out of his ooh-ah and all that weird, nonsensical cartoon stuff that he does, I was like, yes. I audibly said yes. And it was nice to see Shane get his backside kicked, as he should have. And then it just gets his heat back, and he just beats down he beats down The Miz, and we're back to square one with Shane and The Miz. So again, I don't know where this is going. I'm ready for it to be over. Just have them in a steel cage, or don't put them in a cage, because that doesn't keep anybody out. Don't tell the announcers that. But I don't know. Do something that's a final blow off, even if it's before Extreme Rules. I have a sneaking suspicion it's going to last longer than that. But speaking of cage matches, I just have to touch on this because I wanted your thoughts on this. Was the match at Stomping Grounds between Dolph Ziggler and Kofi Kingston, when Kofi Kingston was having his knee twisted and turned and bent, and Dolph was beating the holy hell out of him, and Kofi was limping around, and then magically found a way to not just crawl out of the cage, but leap
dive,
with the bad leg over Dolph Ziggler, not sell that injury at all, and it's forgotten the next night or the next two nights later on SmackDown Live. So that really, really got under my skin, despite the fact that they had a pretty decent match.
Yes, and I almost completely forgot about that, but that is so true, and that made me think back because it's sad because I missed the art of selling. Like I missed the days where if you got injured on 1 week's show, you were still injured that next week. So just stuff like that are just like the little things that I miss with WWE as a whole. But yeah, the dive was pretty cool, I guess. But I don't know if you saw his foot got tangled on the rope, so I'm just happy he landed as best as possible. But it was a cool spot, but yeah, I just wish he maybe at least would have sold it afterwards. Like once he dove through, just celebrate that he retained his title, but at least like limp back up the ramp or something, But yeah,
there was just nothing.
Yeah.
Selling is something that I don't think is a word that is used, or I think when the word selling is used, they really mean register. Meaning, okay, I'm going to acknowledge that you hit me, but I'm not going to sell the pain that comes along with it and sell it in a way that's believable. Like you said, I mean, I remember even in the late 90s, in the much beloved Attitude Era, there were injuries that were carried over week to week to week. And whether it was a neck brace from a tombstone, and I actually was like, I remember that.
Yeah,
I mean, when Undertaker would tombstone
thing.
people, there would be like neck braces or slings if people were put in a hold too long, or crutches or whatever. Even when Vince McMahon, I remember, got his ankle shattered by Kane and the Undertaker, he was in a wheelchair for it seemed like
forever. Yeah.
But obviously, now I'm remembering that. And then he ultimately ended up coming out of that wheelchair just to screw Stone Cold at Survivor Series in a tournament for the championship. I don't know how I remember that, but my point is there's no selling. And when you look at Ricochet, we talked about him earlier, super athletic, like a super athlete. He is athletic to the point that it is embarrassing to be named, or we should be embarrassed to be called human beings when he is a human being. I mean, it's just he makes wrestling looks so easy, but he flies around the ring so much that there's no selling with it. It's just, what's the crazy thing that he's going to do next? Can he do like 80 flips instead of 79? Can he do it? I mean, he's so good, but the problem is there's no selling. If you or I were to do any of these things in real life, my God, we would be torn muscles, torn ligaments.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, think about this. That's the problem with, I think, in general, today's style of wrestling. While it's more exciting and you get the holy, S chants, this is awesome chants. I think that a lot of those chants come from matches that are just flip, flop, fly, and who can do the craziest move and crazy counters. I like ring psychology. I like the art of selling, when I can feel almost the pain of the star that I'm rooting for. That is selling. And after the match, they're limping up the ramp, limping back down the ramp the next night, not just forgetting that maybe they took 80 chair shots to the back. I mean, there's just things that it's like, really? You're not going to sell what just happened? I don't know. I mean, that's a whole other subject that we could do a whole other show on, is the lack of selling and the lost art of selling, actually, is what I would title it. Maybe I will. But I'm totally on board with that. Is just the lost art of selling, the lost art of managers. So many lost arts right now.
So many. But yeah, that could be a whole other show, easily.
Yeah, you inspired me. Maybe I will.
Awesome.
I will. It's because it's just so prevalent. And when Vince McMahon talks about taking breaks or not wrestling during breaks as simulating sports broadcasting and simulating a sports environment, sports feel, No, see, this is where he's disconnected from what the root of the problem is. Their presentation of what wrestling is. That's the root of the problem.
Mm-hmm.
That they've got away from the real feeling of what sports are. It's competition. Wins and losses matter in every single sport. In wrestling, doesn't matter. You just got to attack the champion and you'll get a championship match. I mean, that's the problem. These are the problems Vince McMahon refuses to see. He thinks it's all about entertainment. But again, you entertain people through great storytelling, cohesion, logic. That's how you tell a good story, and that's the fundamental problem. Not giving us new matchups, making sure there's no wrestling during commercial breaks. This is where the disconnect lies, right here.
Exactly.
Well, I didn't mean to go on a rant, but so I've kind of brought up everything that I wanted to. Is there anything from Stomping Grounds, Raw, SmackDown that I may have missed you want to talk about? Anything from the women's division? I know we didn't talk about much about the women's division other than Becky and Seth being a team, which doesn't really count. But was there anything that you wanted to discuss?
I do, actually. I wanted to see what you thought about the Firefly Funhouse developments this week. I don't know if you noticed each of the 4 puppets made an appearance on Raw and SmackDown. Well, 2 on each show, but I was just wondering what your take on having them make small appearances like that without anyone acknowledging it and kind of be like a little Easter egg type thing. And that fact that we did not get an actual video segment from Bray this week.
So, now that you bring that up, okay, so when I was watching the Hulu version of Raw, I was like, did they not include the Firefly Funhouse this week?
Oh.
And lo and behold, there was no video, as you said. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, okay. So I didn't miss anything, but I was waiting for the song to come up. I was like, no, I didn't get it. But I did not know that they had the puppets make an appearance. I did not know that.
Yeah,
so,
you have to go back and look at the screenshots that people have taken online. But I can't remember exactly which puppet was where, but like, do you want me to tell you, or do you want to go back?
Yeah, tell me. No, go ahead.
So, I know the first one, well, one of them on Raw, it was when Miz was walking down the hallway, and then I believe it was Abby the Witch. When Miz was walking, she was on his right, kind of like peeking around the corner. It's like right when he was walking to the ring for like Miz TV or whatever. So, that was the first one, and I think Daniel Bryan had one, or was that on SmackDown? I forget which order, but I think I had them written down. I don't have my paper with me, but there was definitely one. Oh, the other one on Raw was Kofi. So Kofi was stuffing pancakes behind the championship title around his waist, and then one of them popped up behind him. Yeah, did you see that one?
Okay, well, I remember him stuffing pancakes in his championship belt between his, I saw that.
Yeah.
But I did not see, or maybe subconsciously I did, but I don't remember seeing that. So I'll have to go back and see that. Okay.
Yeah, and then there was another one that popped up behind Daniel Bryan on SmackDown, and then, the other one was when Carmella was doing the backstage segment with Bayley. I forget which ones showed up in which scene, but yeah, all 4 puppets were in each one respectively. But yeah, definitely go back and check it out. It was kind of cool.
That is cool. I mean,
I was surprised, with on Raw they didn't have the segment, so I was like, well, wait, what's going on? And I noticed they weren't advertising it, because, normally they would say, tonight, Firefly Funhouse or whatever, and then they would say up next, but, like, we weren't getting any prompts this week. I was like, what's going on? But, yeah, it was kind of cool.
This could be their transition slowly from vignettes and pre-taped videos to him somehow making an appearance.
Yeah, and, terrorize the locker room. That would be the best.
It would be, and you've said it. I've brought other co-hosts on this, and they've said it. I think we can say in unison that when they bring Bray Wyatt back, it needs to be long-term planning. It needs to have a vision, a purpose, go for it, and it needs to be in a massive, major program, not in a mid-card with EC3 or whatever. It needs to be big. It has to be big. They have no choice but to succeed with this, because this is Bray Wyatt at his best. This is light years, I think, beyond his character of the Eater of Worlds and Follow the Buzzards and scriptic stuff behind the scenes that no one understands. This, to me, is a reboot, and one that they cannot miss.
Definitely. Couldn't have said it better myself, actually.
Well, so I left you speechless.
You did.
But speaking of one more thing that now you jogged my memory that I wanted to talk about was Aleister Black, who for the last month has been just dying for somebody to knock at his door to pick a fight with Aleister Black. And no one knocked until this week. So I honestly don't have an idea of who may be knocking at his door to finally pick a fight with him. Do you have any thoughts on who it may be? And how do you like his character so far, doing kind of this backstage segment week after week, basically begging somebody to fight him?
So, I guess the positive side is that he's actually getting TV time and they're doing something with him. I wish if they were going to introduce him like this, they would have done it from the beginning, because we've already seen him now for a few months and he was even on WrestleMania. So I just wish if they were actually going to dedicate time to him, they would have done that when they originally brought him up. That's, I guess, just like a side thing, but I guess some of his promos kind of confused me a little bit, because I didn't really understand where he was going with it all. Obviously, I knew he wanted someone to attack him, but I just didn't. Besides that, like, where are you? Why don't you just come out and just pick a fight if you want to fight so bad? But I guess my guess as who was knocking would be probably maybe Randy Orton, and then I was kind of thinking maybe Bray Wyatt as well. I kind of don't want it to be, but, with the whole let me in thing that Bray was saying, they could kind of play it to what Aleister is saying, having people knock on his door. But I don't know. My guess would be Randy Orton, because that would be a decent feud, I guess, to start off with for him. And it would be against a good opponent.
Randy can do anything at this point. I mean,
yeah.
Honestly, like we love the RKO. He's a legacy star. We know he's never going to really be the focus of WWE anymore. Randy can honestly do anything. I mean, and nobody will really care in a way that's like, oh man, Randy's here. I want him to be at the top. We just don't care. I mean, I think he'll always get a strong reaction. He's one of the biggest stars ever in WWE, although I don't think he ever reached his full potential. His RKO is beyond over. I think ultimately, at the end of the day, people will just go, oh, cool, Randy's here. He gave somebody an RKO. I mean, really, I think that's where people are at right now with Randy. So Randy is a good choice because he's a good fit, I think, for Aleister Black. The question, I guess, is, well, is Randy a heel? Is he a face? I mean, is Aleister Black heel or face? I think he's kind of turned heel at this point, based on his promos and just being this guy that's nasty backstage, and he's anybody pick a fight with me. I mean, it seems a little bit arrogant. So yeah, I think Aleister Black is the heel. You could have Randy play the babyface. Randy prefers to be heel. I mean, that's well documented. But yeah. I mean, sure, that sounds good. I like the kind of the small reboot of Aleister Black. He was getting a little bit lost in the tag division there. And outside of his entrance, people were like, I mean, especially if you didn't watch NXT, you're like, what? Oh, okay, I don't understand this. So, yeah, him and Randy, sure. First feud, let's do this. As you said, I hope it's not Bray. Bray needs to go higher. Oh,
for sure, yeah. I definitely, Bray has to go main event when he debuts. Has to.
Oh, no, there's no
Or
question.
attacking all the main players. But yeah, definitely. I think maybe down the road they would have a nice little feud, but definitely not starting off for either of them, for that matter.
So one last thing, for at least on my end, and then I'll toss it to you for anything else that I may not have touched on. What do you think ultimately happens with Brock Lesnar and the Money in the Bank contract? Who does he cash in on? And maybe a time frame if you have one.
I think he's going to go Kofi. I think he's going to cash in on Kofi. Part of me wants to say when they debut on Fox, just for that big shock and that big bang factor, but if he didn't there, I could see him cashing in. I'm sticking with Kofi, but if he doesn't cash in, maybe when they debut there, maybe he would do it before then at SummerSlam, but I don't know. I think he's definitely going to cash in on Kofi. But I don't see him holding it for too much longer.
No. Yeah, and people think it's going to be Seth because they have a history.
And that's why I think that he won't, because just to freshen things up. Because I don't want to see Seth and him in a rematch. I want them both to move on and do new things. And how much more heat could he possibly get than attacking Kofi and taking the title from him, you know?
That's exactly why. I mean, people like Seth, and he's a good champion, but Kofi's the one that hasn't got an opportunity yet, and he was there for over 10 years, 11 years, whatever, and he finally gets that opportunity, and he wins it at WrestleMania. So I think the struggle to get there was higher for Kofi, therefore fans respect the struggle more than they have for Seth. Not to say that Seth doesn't have respect,
right,
but obviously he's been there longer. He's the elder statesman. People know who he is and respect his journey because it was longer. And so having Brock Lesnar come in and, as you said, taking it from Kofi, I think would create more heat than Seth because we've seen it. And imagine the fan reaction if say it is a rematch with Samoa Joe and Kofi Kingston at SummerSlam, and ultimately you have Kofi Kingston prevail against Samoa Joe again. And you have the announcers, the struggle, the whatever Byron Saxton is having an orgasm over about how great Kofi Kingston is. I mean, because maybe really, like if you listen to Byron Saxton, right, he just goes bonkers for Kofi Kingston every single time he comes out. But again, you could easily tell that story, and a grueling match. He overcomes Samoa Joe, and out comes Brock Lesnar, gives him an F5, one move. And then ends up walking out with the championship with a big smile on his face, and the fans are losing their minds. They would go
crazy.
But that's exactly what they would. That's what I'd be going for if I was WWE. Crazy heat, which would put the rocket ship back on Kofi. Even now he doesn't have the belt, but now you have a different motivation for Kofi, and that is wanting to see him get his revenge on Brock. So I think we're onto something here.
Definitely. And then what would be better to have Brock take it from Kofi, and then we get to see Kofi go on this journey again, and it'll kind of be better in a weird aspect for him because now we know he can do it, so we want to see him do it again, and we want to see him slay the beast. So I think that would be such an awesome storyline.
Yeah, I think we just booked the next 2 months for WWE. So I think WWE, I accept cash, check, and money order, just so you guys are aware.
Same.
So that's really all the topics that I had to that I wanted to discuss with you because it was a long. It feels like it's been forever since we spoke. I know it's only been a few weeks, but is there anything that I may have missed?
No, I think that was pretty much everything in a nutshell for this week, and it's just crazy to think that everything happened this week. So, but I think we pretty much covered all the major things.
Well, good timing. Good timing for beyond this week.
Right.
I believe, if I'm doing my math correct, and don't get on my math skills. It took me 6 times to pass calculus. That's a real thing.
Hey, but you passed. That's all that matters.
Well, yeah, no, I did. Yeah, it was. Oh boy, I only failed once. The other 5 times I dropped out. So.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, so there's that. So 1, 2, 3. So you'll be on the week after Extreme Rules. So
yeah.
We will. That's again perfect timing. You can bet there'll be some fallout from Extreme Rules, obviously Raw and SmackDown, so that's a hell of a week to be on too. So you're on the right schedule.
Perfect. That was the perfect plan.
All right, Ashley. Well, again, thanks for coming on, but before you leave, let everyone know how they can follow you.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at ASHMANNS.
Awesome. And we will be in touch soon, and I'm sure with the new implementation of Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff things are going to get hot real quick. So, Ashley, thanks again, and we will talk to you soon.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.
All right. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, guys. So as we get older, hair loss is just part of what we have to deal with, right? And I'm 34 years old, and I can already see it taking place. And you all know about the foam you can put on your head and the invasive surgeries you can have and hair transplants, all of that. Well, what if there was an easier way to do it and a safer way? And that is through scalp micropigmentation. So Star Micropigmentation, they're the leaders in the scalp micropigmentation. It's the newest non-invasive solution to thinning hair and balding. And at Star Micropigmentation, they use the most sophisticated device and needles specifically engineered for the scalp. So they ensure that it's the most natural looking results. you can go to their website if you want to check it out at scalptattoostore.com, or you can call them at 844-TAT-HAIR. That's 844-TAT-HAIR, or the scalptattoostore.com. And at Star Micropigmentation, they also offer a certification, so you can join them in this booming industry. And I checked out the website, guys, and I'm really impressed. You should see some of the results that they have posted up there. You can also get trained, as I said, in being able to provide this to other people. So check out the scalptattoostore.com today.